but only one truth. Growing Christian side, they're the truth of me, of you, and I didn't feel hurt you were the truth. Got to live, but not what you see. Don't be scared. Don't be scared.
So I want to give you an example of what real racism is. I'll give you an example of what racism is. You say, oh, you're a racist, you're a racist. That's just judgment. You know, you're fat, you're small, you're tall, you're small, you're ugly. It's a comment to just insult somebody. And so when you say you're a racist, it's just like, oh, you're fat. You know, because that comment doesn't really help the situation at all. And if the person is racist, everybody knows it. And if the person is fat, everybody knows it. And you don't have to say anything. Seriously. Try to help the situation. So, you guys, when somebody says you're racist, it's not a thing that, you know, it's an insult. You're trying to say it to insult somebody. And so, I give you real examples of racism being a half black guy. When I would work, or when I would apply for job interviews, it's just a business voice is really what I call it. When I work for somebody, I have great phone voice. You know, it's like people say, "Oh, you give great phone." It's just because when you're on the phone, you're not face to face with somebody, and that's your first impression that you want to make on somebody. Whether it be for a job interview that you have to call in, or excuse me, let me just, always having dogs to deal with. Come on, baby. Whether it be you, let's start that. A lot of times the phone is the first time they get to hear who you are as a person in the physical form. And so, you know, whether it be for a rental application, a rental unit, or you're renting, or if a job interview, or whatever it is that you are contacting somebody with on the phone, you should, and you don't know those people, you should find your phone voice. You know, find your phone voice. It is a voice that goes beyond who you are as a person, and it's your first impression. And really, you know, it's one of those things that it's a great learning thing anyway, of how to really begin to talk to people in a professional way. So anyway, going back to what I was going to say, a lot of racism, a perfect example of this, is how many times I started a conversation with somebody on the phone. Back then, we didn't have like a lot of computers, so a lot of stuff. We have fax machines and stuff, but you know, you would initially call. If you set a call to set up an appointment, call for an interview. You name it. You're not emailing it. You name it. You're calling. And so, sure enough, I would use that voice, or I would just whatever, and then I would show up for the interview. And I got to tell you, my first real example. I was at UC Berkeley going to school, and I had gotten a job with the admissions department, this is going to be my second year now, my sophomore year, I had gotten a job, a temporary job in the admissions department to help them with a specific task during the beginning of school. I don't even remember what the task was. And I was already working for the school during the summer in this, one of the best jobs I've ever had. Maybe I'll do a video on that. But because I was already in the system, I had that going for me. And so I got reference to this lady, and we wound up speaking on the phone about this job, and she hired me over the phone. She literally hired me over the phone. And it was going to be a very specific job from this period to that period, right when school started. And I was like, great. So I show up the first day of this job. And you have to understand, I'm a sophomore in college. I'm going to Berkeley. This is back in 1985. But I have dreads. And back in 1985, you have to understand something. There's not a lot of people who had dreads. I mean, literally, the only dreads you saw was Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and that was about it. You didn't see anybody else with dreads. You know, there was no dreads. There was nobody there dreading anywhere. But I had dreads, and when I got there, she goes, hi, and I had a different name than I have now, and I said, hi, I'm here, and she goes, oh, and this woman, this administrator who ran this department, who I'd been speaking to, had nice conversations, really, really nice conversations with. All of a sudden, before we got to my workstation, as we're walking back, she's like kind of talking to me, oh, that's great, and we'll see, let's see how it goes this morning. And if it goes well, we'll have you, work for the afternoon. And I'm like thinking to myself, wait a second, we just agreed for a month. And now you're talking about only working for the morning? And it wasn't that I wasn't dressed for the office. It wasn't anything than that. It was the fact that I was half black and had dreads. And she was expecting a white person after talking to me on the phone. And my name, actually I should tell you my name. My name, last name, was a very Jewish-sounding name. So it's like you get that last name and then you get me. And that you're like, whoa, wait, how did that happen? And so because I was adopted and half black and into a Jewish family and bar mitzvah, I was in a lot of situations that people would learn, how did he get here? Why is he here? Like, who is he connected to? So, it was that kind of thing. To me, that was racism. Here she had hired me, and now that when she saw me, she was now talking about breaking the agreement we had over the phone. None of my work experience mattered. None of my qualifications mattered. It was now I was just going to be working here for just the afternoon. Well, of course, I wound up working out the entire time, and even 3 weeks after that. I worked even longer than the actual period of time. And you have to understand something. You learn this very quickly as a person of color in this country. When you get an opportunity, you've got to nail it, because you've got to nail it, man. If you're a person of color, you can't be, down with America and all this stuff. No, keep that crap to yourself if that's how you feel. No, if you're not doing a good job for you, you're doing it for the next person of color behind you, so they don't regret ever hiring you. So, if you look at it that way, every generation makes a little headway into just normalizing everything. Because we started off, it wasn't really normalized, but, God said we need some black people over in this country. The only way we're going to get them is if we put them in a boat, because they don't like to swim. I don't know what it is, but the black people are going to come over here. So, sure enough, God put them on the boat, and we got a whole bunch of great black people over here only because of slavery. But now that we have the opportunities, and we weren't slaves, so that we could stop that stuff. The people that came before us were slaves. And I don't know if you know this, but if you got a slave and a slave master, both of them in jail. both of them. One's got to make sure one's locked up, and the other one is locked up. And those are both, is slavery. Both of them. You don't want to live like that. You want both people to be there mutually in equalness, and because they want to be there, and because the two of them are better than one of them. And that's what it means. We as a country are better all together than separated. God put all of the different countries in this country for a reason, not to be divisive, but to come together under one language, under one God, and to really be an example of what God can do when we just decide, hey, we're all children of God here. And just because some people don't know they're a child of God is not a reason to, put them down either. Sometimes you got to explain it to them in a way, and the best way to explain it is the way you live, not talking. Talking is just, you're lost in translation when you talk. But the way you live is the best way to make an example that there is a God. Because, if you just live right, then God will do the rest. So, another example of racism that just happened last week. And this one I want you to listen to. Because I'm going to call it racism, but then now that I walk with God and He talks to me, He showed me what it really was. But you have to really ask, because we're only looking at a situation from our perspective. And we have no idea where that person came, where we intersected. We have no idea where the intersection came, where the event happened, where that person came. And because I walk with God, I was able to really ask about it, and only in the way God shows me that I knew it was the correct answer. And I was convicted again for judging. If you judge somebody and you ask later, okay, God, I'm sorry for why I judged that person, and then you ask Him why, it was bad, because that was a bad thing He did. If you pray about it, God will show you, and you'll have more compassion for that person's walk. Hey, no, you'll have more compassion for that person's walk but you have to have your heart prepared if you're asking God to show you, because everybody's walking in a certain way. And when somebody doesn't treat us the right way, we just immediately jump to our like, that person's wrong, but we're only seeing one side of it. So here's the story, and it's really, really important. I had a friend take me to the store, a gas station, and to get something, and he dropped me off, and like I normally do, I wound up talking to somebody in there, and he left, and I could see that right across the way he went to the car wash. I could see his car going into the car wash. So I walked around the side there and to the front of the gas station, and there are 2 rows of banks of gas pumps. There are 2 rows of them. And nobody was in the gas station at all, no cars whatsoever. And I was standing there just on the corner on the top of the cement little ledge right outside the door there, just waiting for him with my Bible. I had my Bible with me, and I was dressed in, I was kind of, I had my yellow pants, red shirt, green, red, yellow, green, Rasta color stuff, and I was just waiting there. Didn't expect to be waiting there, but I always know that when God puts me in a situation that's unknown, that I should pay attention, because He's not going to waste my time. He's just not going to do that. And so I'm like really just paying attention to like what it is, why I'm here, standing here. Because I expected to get in that car and go home. But He has me here. And lo and behold, a car pulls into the gas station. And it's all the way over the last pump, but it's the first pump all the way, and I can't see the person that stopped there because the pumps are in the way, and they can't see me, but I can see the front of their car. Anyway, that person comes around and starts walking up to the store. Obviously, they have to pay for the gas. I guess what they're doing. I don't know. And she is walking, a lady walks up, and she glances up at me, and she sees me there, standing there. And she takes out her keys from her pocket and turns her alarm on her car. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, that's funny. You know, she goes, it's the middle of the day, too, by the way. It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something, like the middle of the day. And she goes inside. And I was just so flabber. I felt so, I mean, it was just so obvious to me that she looked at me and said, oh, this guy might rip off my car. And you know, I'm very aware that other people come into our village, our valley here, and they tourist and stuff. They come from Phoenix, a lot of high crime, but, you know, I mean, the mental state, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the criminals in the middle of the day are going to go, I don't know what she was thinking. Well, I do know, because God later told me about it. So my roommate who gave me the ride, he comes and picks me up, not 2 seconds after that happens, and I say, you want to know what racism? And I tell him and I tell him the story I just told you. And he's like, oh man, that's cold, man. I was like, oh yeah, that's just, you know, feeling like, oh my God, look at that. And you have to understand, as a person my age, these incidents happen your whole entire life. These types of things happen. And you want to believe that it had nothing to do with what you look like. So, but it still hurts. It hurts, because you know your heart. You know what, God knows your heart. So anyway, I told one other person about this. The woman that God has brought to me. And I told her about it, and I decided I wasn't going to tell anybody else about it. And a couple of days later, it's itching at me. And I know, God, that if you're still thinking about something, you're not done with it. That if you're still, like, you haven't moved on, we move on in life, and if you're still looking back, everybody wants to follow Jesus, but they got to feed their animals first. No, I'm sorry. No, you have to keep going forward. Especially when bad things like that. Don't let the bad things hold you back. And that's Satan's plan. It's like when something bad happens, it holds you back. And so what you have to do when it's holding you back is you got to keep going to God and keep asking for an answer. Say, God, why is this still in me? Why am I still having a problem with this? And when you're honest with yourself, the answers come for why that situation is in front of you. And he says, do you have any idea where I've taken this woman and what she's been through? I said, no. So this woman has said that from now on, no matter how quick the ride is, or how quickly she gets out of that car, I am going to lock that door. That is what she is trying to do. She is careless about locking her car. I have put you on that corner. And when she saw you, she was reminded that she had to lock her car. It had nothing to do with what you looked like, but you were a reminder for her to continue to lock her car. And it's going to be very important for her to lock her car. And nothing to do with race. It had to do what you remind. People remind us of things. God has to bring things to their remembrance. And he will do it any way he can. And if you're a servant for God, he's going to put you somewhere where you need to be so you can help him. And if you're going to scream racism because you're looking at it from that eye, then you're not the servant for God. You say, oh, Christians are persecuted, blah, blah, blah. If you want to play that game, then don't be a Christian, don't be a this, don't be a martyr, don't be whatever. It has nothing to do about how this or that is. What you feel about it. You have to seek the answer. God will not waste your time or your pain or your sorrow on the situations he puts you in. He's not going to do it, but you have to do the work and go to him and seek clarification. We don't know what the struggles are of people. And God is helping each and one of us in his own special way. And I remember before I had a connection with God, it's like I make these vows, like, okay, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to do this. And I remember, I remembered. And I don't know if that is a woman of God. All I know is that God wanted her to make sure that every time she leaves her car, that door is locked. No matter how short her trip is, it's important that she does it. A lot of times, God will prepare us for something before it happens. He'll prepare us before so it doesn't have to happen. And so, so of course that night I repented and oh my gosh, I felt so bad. But it's one of those things, we are quick to judge racism like I was, because I'm used to it my whole life. And believe me, there's going to be times you'll say, hey. But usually racism is something that you can look at and call it racist is because that person is in their little box. I'm going to tell you more about this later, about my own experience about judging people as a salesperson and then going into their homes and seeing how they lived. That was an amazing experience. How people walked on the outside and you go to their homes and oh my God. And in some cases it was completely what you wouldn't have expected from what they presented to you. And that's something that you all should keep in context when we meet people in public. The public person may have nothing to do with what's going on in their home. And so if you're a servant of God, you need to pay attention that if God put somebody in front of you, he's not wasting your time. He's not wasting your time, no matter what you're going through. If you're not a servant for God, you're going to rush through your day, and you're not going to make the connections and hear and be guided in the way that God wants to. And there are going to be times, folks. Right now, I think you can find a 99-cent burger somewhere, but there'll be time where you're not going to be able to find that burger. You're not going to be able to click that TV clicker. And in those times, you're going to have to, really, really rely on God, but more so have an understanding about what this life is about and be willing to lose it. Because if you're not willing to lose your life for another person during those terrible times, then, you'll probably wind up doing things that you would never think you'd be doing today. Because that's going to be the way that the people will survive, is by doing those awful things. The American psyche hasn't really been challenged about what you will do in terms of surviving. Who are you willing to sacrifice in order for your life to live? We've never really been in that situation. Some of the people in the military have been in that situation. But Americans as a whole, as a generation, don't know what it means to sacrifice anything for another person, unless they're getting a paycheck, or it satisfies their own sense of self. But that's not a sacrifice, then. All right. It is July 17th, 2019. And I'm signing off.